Tēnā koutou katoa, kia ora. Ko Heidi tōku ingoa, ko Andrew tēnei. We're from the New Zealand Maritime Museum, hui te Ananui a Tangaroa, where we formed the Digi Hub. It was the two of us, there was a team of 4, myself, Andrew, Catherine Meaton and Laura Davies, and it was born out of the digitisation project at the Maritime Museum.
Digitisation is not a new idea, and it hasn't always been done well. We know places like National Library, Te Papa do it very well, but smaller organisations often struggle. Even when the funding is available, it's still difficult to do. But by the end of this talk, everyone here will know how to do digitisation.
So it begins with records management. So here's some instructions. Yeah. So just
and here's a list of the gear you'll need.
Yeah.
Just take a couple of those and pass them around, guys. Cool. So is everyone feeling enabled?
Yeah.
Are you all clear on what to do? Based on common ways of setting up a digitisation process, you are all now fully enabled. So kia ora, guys.
Sweet.
Thank you.
Off you go.
We'll
Kia
see you
ora.
later.
Yeah, we're done. We all know it's not that simple at all.
While the funding might be available, the money doesn't come with the skills and the knowledge needed to do digitisation in a way that is meaningful and makes good use of the investment. There's often a misconception that to do meaningful digitisation, all you need is expensive cameras and lighting, fancy computers and a trained photographer. But the reality is you don't. It's not about image resolution, calibration, perfect lighting. Consumer level equipment is now more than adequate. And while stunning photos are nice to have, they're not what makes digitisation worthwhile.
Yeah. What's important is what you do with those images you take. So what is meaningful digitisation?
Well, the images need to be findable. So named and linked to digital records in a collection management system. They need to be protected and managed. So stored in some kind of suitable infrastructure and accessible and with some kind of file integrity checks or something running on them.
Yeah. So it's no good spending money producing images if those images are not findable, if they're not linked to your collections management database, and not stored for the long term. Because it's not about taking the photos, it's about
what you do with them.
Yeah.
But current funding models focus too much on taking the photos.
They often ignore that complete process. Yeah. Similarly, existing training and workshops often overlook, that part of it. They'll focus on taking the photographs, maybe for outsourcing to other contractors, but if it's not part of that meaningful process, then you can have nameless photographs sitting on a server somewhere.
They become a poor investment. Images that can't be linked easily to records end up just sitting on a hard drive somewhere until bit rot or device failure destroys them.
But in a project completion report, one might say, or the organisation might say, we were successful, we digitised the collection.
When all they've really done is just taken lots of photos. Great example, at New Zealand Maritime Museum, we have approximately 90,000 images sitting on one of our servers. They're all taken pre-2019, guess when our project started. They were not linked to records, they're not named in meaningful ways. We cannot associate them with records. They are in every sense of the word disassociated from the collection. It was mostly done with outsourced digitisation and it was often externally funded.
So this was not a great investment.
And we're not unique. I know bigger organisations that have considerably larger numbers of images, and I know smaller organisations that have larger numbers of images in that situation.
So this brings us to the Digi Hub idea. So after working, we both worked at Auckland War Memorial for many years, learnt a lot, and then moved on to the New Zealand Maritime Museum where we set up digitisation process there. It became clear that funding and the support often focuses on that photography side of things and not so much on the collections management and that wider process. And these difficulties doing meaningful digitisation at Maritime Museum led us to thinking, how do even smaller organisations, how are they ever able to do it really? So, yeah.
Our love of culture and heritage and our desire to help others led us to creating the Digi Hub project. And it's based on a philosophy of spending time and working collaboratively. The goal being to help small organisations embed digitisation as business as usual.
Yeah. So we sought funding in 2023 and we undertook the project in 2024. And we started by listing all the small GLAM organisations in the Auckland region. And I sent out probably about a dozen emails and got such a positive response, like overwhelming positive response. I had to stop there. And then those lucky enough to kind of get in early, we visited them on their site, at their organisation, talked to them about their capabilities and their goals, and based on that we chose 3 organisations who we assessed as ready.
Those lucky 3 organisations were the Warkworth and Districts Museum. It's located in our north of Auckland CBD. It's very small, very, very self-funded, a classic regional museum and archive.
Yep. And then the second was Charlotte Museum. They're based in Auckland CBD. They're a really tiny museum and they are focused on lesbian social history.
And the third org was the Howick Historical Village, which is in Auckland's eastern suburbs. Has a mixed history. It's a recreation of a colonial village. There is a museum there and they're refinding their place in the community. They're very self-aware.
So with all 3, we started by explaining to them the challenges of digitisation and how we had experienced it, moving to the smaller organisation of Maritime Museum.
Each organisation wanted digitisation to be embedded. They wanted to make it business as usual. They had all tried it in some way or other beforehand. They had scanned things, photographed things, outsourced things, but they'd never really grasped the bigger picture of how to integrate it. And so we helped them because they needed to understand that to get there, they needed to gain the confidence, and not just as an organisation, but as teams and as individuals.
Yep. So the positive impacts of digitisation are really well known, and there are lovely talks about that.
I hope everyone here understands the positive effects of digitisation.
However, unless you've kind of been involved in adopting this as an integrated process into your existing collections management, you might not realise what an impact it has on the culture of the whole organisation. Digitisation isn't just about that public access, it's also about kind of institutional access. It exposes your collection, and mostly to yourself. You see the gaps, you see everything that might be wrong with your collection or your practices. You will see, your object numbering, your records management, your storage. You'll find things you didn't know you have. We've found so much. And begin to understand, you might know them well, but the strengths and the weaknesses of your practices.
You don't do digitisation in isolation. You integrate it into your collection management process, but you don't know what you don't know. So those challenges become integrating digitisation. It's not really a simple thing unless you're already doing it, because it is so disruptive. And you have to be accepting of that disruption. And people can't be put off by exposure to those problems that are usually historic.
Yeah.
These are all people things.
Yeah. So people have to, the people of these organisations, they need to accept this change. It's going to be, it's really going to throw it all up in the air, and they need to understand that that disruption is part of integrating digitisation into what you're already doing.
For example, how do you assign accession numbers? Just think about how your organisation assigns them. Are they unique? because if they're not, it could impact your file naming, which impacts your ability to find those images later.
And also, as you move through this process, people can't be too demoralised as you go along. When you unearth these historic legacy issues, with patience and planning, it can be overcome. And every organisation faces these challenges. We know well. I've worked at 5 different organisations. Doesn't matter if you're Te Papa or Charlotte Museum, that's the same or very similar problems, just different scales. And critically, these challenges need to be accepted and recognised at that governance level as well.
It's the whole organisation have to be on board, not just the collections team. And we found that at Auckland War Memorial as much as we found that at Warkworth and Charlotte.
Yeah.
One of the core philosophies of the Digi Hub was spending time at each organisation. Lots of time. It really came down to time with people. So we moved in and worked full-time at each one. They gave us desks and keys and alarm codes. I know how to get into more museums in Auckland than I probably should. But we became a part of their teams. They gave us time to work with them, to help them accept change, to understand how they worked, and to work with them to figure out the solutions that they needed to do digitisation in a way that would be meaningful and lasting. We spent lots of time building trust, and we drank lots of cups of tea in the process.
And we couldn't really do these sorts of things with a published paper or a workshop, 2 days or something. They learnt from people who'd been through it. We'd been through it, and who understand what they're sort of dealing with and can listen and then move and work at a pace that worked for them.
We were there for the people.
He aha te mea nui o te ao.
Everyone say it with me. He tangata, he tangata, he tangata.
Yeah, we started heavily involved in problem solving. It was training and problem solving, but it was all about the disruption, but working through it with them. But then over time, over the 9 to 12 weeks, we would gradually step away, and when they came with a question, we'd go, you try and work it out with the team, with your team. And so gradually we left them with the autonomy to change and tweak their processes themselves, so that ultimately they took ownership completely.
All 3 have continued to do digitisation independently.
That's it for that one. Next.
The Digi Hub really worked. So all 3 have taken it on as BAU. It is now their business as usual.
So at Howick Historical Village, they actually, as a result of the project, they created a permanent digitisation role, hiring one of the digitisation volunteers.
Warkworth took on 9 volunteers when we started, and they have all continued in the project and are doing a great job. They've also been able to give advice and support to organisations in their area, the Albert Land and Puhoi Heritage Museums.
Yeah, and this is a year on from when we left them. They're still going. Charlotte Museum has trained several university students in digitisation, and they've also, on request, kind of digitised some material for their community.
And are currently supporting Legans.
Oh yeah, Legans. Yeah.
So combined tens of thousands of images of thousands of archives and records were produced, and they continue to be. All 3 have long-term storage for their images, and all of those images are findable and linked to collection records.
Yeah, so all 3 can confidently invest time. A lot of it is voluntary time, but they can confidently invest that time, or they could invest funding if they did receive funding for outsourcing digitisation work. So yeah, in the 2 years the year we were planning and then the year we ran the project last year, we interacted with 20 or over 20 organisations. Some were seeking to work with us to build their own program, but many sought advice on specific things. Yeah.
So the demand is still there.
Yeah.
We've had enough organisations request to be involved. We could run it easily for another 2 years. We were planning that second year, talking to the next 3 organisations when we found out that there wasn't going to be another year of funding. But the interest is there from all over the country. There's over 2,000 GLAM organisations here in Aotearoa. So this could easily be a full-time service. Imagine if all of those organisations were doing some kind of digitisation, how much content that would be.
Yeah, how much content is in all these little
Yeah.
regional and district museums.
We did a good job. But it was hard. Yeah. Should you want to entertain the idea of doing it yourself, we highly recommend it. It's hugely rewarding. You meet some truly amazing people. It's a reminder that just because someone's a volunteer, it doesn't mean they're not professional. And in some cases, we saw some collection management standards that were above some of our here at national institutions.
Yeah.
And you see amazing collections, of course.
Yeah. So our little team of 4 spent 12 months working at 4 different locations. We were at Warkworth Museum and then Charlotte Museum, back at Maritime for a little while, and then Howick. And at each organisation we spent 9 to 12 weeks working continuously. So basically kind of changing our kainga, our home base, 4 times in a year. We commuted for probably a combined 70,000 kilometres. Sometimes the commute was 2.5 hours each way, and we didn't even leave the Auckland region.
Yeah.
It was pretty intense.
We kind of became our own little whanau, moving nomadically between organisations as the seasons changed. Literally spring somewhere, autumn the next.
Very poetic.
Brilliant. Each place we stopped at introduced us to new people and new things as we moved to a new raupu every 3 months. But those ongoing connections we made at each organisation meant we never really left them. So moving to a new organisation meant starting somewhere new. We were never leaving, always starting for a whole year.
And starting somewhere new obviously meant adjusting to the culture of the museum. You know, we had their alarm codes and their keys, so had to fit in. Like discussing vaginas over lunch at Charlotte Museum was BAU, whereas
how to raise a lamb and farming techniques was pretty standard tea conversation at Warkworth.
Yeah, really. Or horses to swim, I remember that was a conversation.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
But yeah, so we made some amazing new friends and hopefully long-lasting relationships, both professional and personal. Yeah, that photograph that you just saw, that would never have happened on day 1, but week 9, there we were.
That's us at Charlotte Museum with their team.
There's the manager.
Yeah.
That ends, Sarah Buxton. Yeah. It was awesome. So what have we learned?
Well, meaningful digitisation is a full workflow. Images have to be linked to collection records. That's what renders the images findable. But integrating it into a collection process is an upheaval and it faces many challenges. But doing it successfully involves everyone, from the governance to the collections team. Those challenges mean that some organisations need help. When you're the scale of Auckland War Memorial, you can figure it out yourself in-house. When you're the scale of Warkworth or Charlotte, you really do need some extra resource and support. And that best comes from people who have been through it, who have done it. I know there's lots of other people in this room who do or are doing or have done lots of digitisation and understand these things. But you have to take the time to work collaboratively to guide and advise.
So we did it for a year. And the proof, I feel, is witnessed in the approach that worked for us at Warkworth, Charlotte and Howick.
And you're welcome to go if anyone wants to go and have a chat with them. They're all really open and love talking to people.
Yeah, warts and all.
Yeah. we hope our experience from this project can inform an approach to helping other organisations, basically an approach to outreach.
Yeah.
It's about doing it with them.
With them, not to them. Yes.
And it doesn't matter where it is. If you love culture and heritage.
You love all culture and heritage. Yeah. So we want to thank the New Zealand Lottery Commission for funding this wonderful program, Tātaki Auckland Unlimited as well. And a really special thanks to the New Zealand Maritime Museum for allowing us that time to do the outreach work.
Yeah, with the funding and support, we've proved the Digi Hub philosophy works, and it has improved digital capability and increased access beyond what we had hoped.
Indeed. Ngā mihi nui.
Ngā mihi.
Thanks.
So, just as our amazing MC comes back, we are around for the whole conference, and we're both very friendly and approachable. So come and have a chat to us.
Thank you for the kind words. The money will be in the post. We've got time for just one or two questions coming in. People who work in conservation know that every museum worker's worst nightmare is someone who donates a document, a historic document that they very helpfully laminated for you. What is the digitisation version of that, and is it 90,000 images that have no metadata?
Yeah, basically. It's taking a photo and saving it to a hard drive somewhere.
Great.
Yeah.
And just going, hey, here's a thing.
Yeah.
And then someone in the future looks at that photo and goes, hey, there's a photo of a thing. And it might be a beautiful photo,
Yeah.
but it's just of a thing.
A couple of the questions that came in were around the three museums that you worked with. Has there been any sort of peer-to-peer support between them?
Yeah.
Do they meet
Yes.
up? Do they discuss their experiences? What does that look like?
So a mixture of all of it. So part of the project was also, it's peer-to-peer. But also we put them in touch with kind of a support network with, like some of you are out there, people I contacted around Mātauranga Māori or copyright or, things that we didn't have the skills to offer them at the time, and also knowing we were just a hit squad and we were walking away and they needed to be enabled. So kind of putting them in touch with other people in the sector who would provide them with ongoing storage and conservation. That was also another thing. So yes, so they're not going it alone. They know that, and it was wonderful seeing them already provide advice and support to their own peers.
We did have a barbecue with some drinks afterwards, so
Yes.
they all did kind of get to know each other.
Yes.
And they do talk, and they email each other, and there's conversations that go on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And going from three organisations, do you see that there's a call for a national hub for digitisation, or does it need to be on a smaller scale?
Oh my gosh! I mean, we got inquiries from Hokitika, from Hawke's Bay,
Tauranga.
Otago, all over the place, and it was like we can help with an email, but we just don't have. We're only here for a year, so there's so much. They know, they understand what digitisation is. A lot of these organisations, and so many of them are volunteer-based, run. Many retirees, but they get it. They totally get it, and they're trying. But they've got, collections, as we all know, legacy. They may or may not have been numbered. There might be, 4 or 5 or more different numbering systems, and then how do you get that into a database? Let alone then take photos that make sense. So it's. It's there, but outside of our bigger organisations, they're just trying to go it alone, and But the culture and heritage there is just as meaningful and powerful and important to our communities. Yeah. Is that it?
Yes, that is it. Everyone, a huge round of applause for Andrew and Heidi. Thanks so much.
Kia ora. Thank you.
Thank you.